Welcome to Luxury Stories. I'm Spuds Oxley, diving into the shocking discovery that left German U-boat crews in disbelief amid the Atlantic's deadly waves. June 16, 1943, 0200 hours. The North Atlantic, a black expanse of churning waves under a moonless sky, somewhere between Iceland and the Azores. Salt spray lashes the conning tower of U-505, where Oberleutnant Harald Lange grips the periscope, his breath fogging the lens in the icy chill. The submarine slices through the water like a predator, engines humming low to evade Allied sonar pings that could turn hunter into hunted in an instant. Lange's eyes strain against the darkness, scanning for silhouettes on the horizon. His crew below decks, 48 men crammed into a steel tube reeking of diesel, sweat, and unwashed bodies, huddle in tense silence. You've got to imagine it. The dim red lights casting eerie shadows on faces gaunt from weeks at sea, the constant drip of condensation from the hull, the metallic tang of fear in the air. Every creak of the pressure hull reminds them they're one depth charge away from a watery grave. "Contact bearing 040, whispers the sonar operator, Funker Schmidt, his headphones pressed tight. "Single screw, merchantman, speed 12 knots, no escort." Lange's pulse quickens. A lone tanker, Norwegian flag from the looks of it through the periscope's crosshairs. The SL-125, as they'll later learn, laden with oil from the Americas, bound for Britain. In the Wolfpack days, this would have been easy prey, but now in '43, the Atlantic is turning hostile. Convoy hunters like U-505 are being picked off by Allied destroyers with their infernal radar and hedgehog mortars. Donitz's happy time is over. Losses mount and resupplies dwindle. But a capture? That's rare gold. Fuel for the boat, rations to stretch their meager stores of hard bread and tinned sausage that's more sawdust than meat. "Surface the boat," Lange orders, his voice steady but laced with the gravel of exhaustion. The klaxon blares, 3 sharp bursts, and U-505 surges upward, breaking the surface with a roar of compressed air. Waves crash over the deck as the gun crew scrambles topside, manning the 88mm deck gun under Lieutenant Meyer's barked commands. The night air bites like knives, but it's freedom after the claustrophobia below. You can almost feel the adrenaline spike as they close in, the tanker's lights a faint glow against the void. No radio distress yet. Good, they're unaware. Lange signals the boarding party. 10 men, armed with MP40s and grenades, led by bootsman Klein. Their mission? Seize the ship, scuttle it after stripping what they can. In the U-boat arm, it's doctrine. Disrupt the Allied lifeline, that endless stream of supplies feeding Churchill's war machine. The tanker looms larger now, its stack belching smoke that blends with the fog rolling in. "Halt engines!" Lange shouts through the megaphone, the deck gun trained dead on the bridge. A spotlight pierces the night, illuminating panicked faces on the merchant's deck. Norwegian sailors, civilians mostly, hands rising in surrender. No fight here. They're not warriors. Klein and his team leap across in the swell, ropes securing the vessels in a dangerous embrace. Boots thud on wooden planks as they storm the bridge, subduing the captain, a weathered man named Olsen with zip ties and a pistol to the temple. "Papers," Klein demands in broken English. The manifest spills secrets. Aviation fuel, machine parts, and cargo holds brimming with foodstuffs? Lange, monitoring from the conning tower, allows a grim smile. This could be their luckiest strike yet.
Below, in U-505's torpedo room, the crew murmurs excitement. Weeks of canned misery, and now fresh spoils? But as Klein's team descends into the holds, flashlight beams cutting through the gloom, something shifts. Whispers over the radio. "Capitaine, you won't believe this." The first hint of wonder cracks the tension. What could possibly stun these hardened submariners, men who've stared down death in the deep? And then, the revelation begins to unfold, one that will shatter their illusions of German invincibility. Klein's voice crackles over the radio again, urgent now, cutting through the static like a knife. "Capitaine, the holds! It's not just fuel. Come see for yourself." Lange hesitates, glancing at the tanker's crew, herded on deck under Meyer's watchful eye. Faces pale, eyes wide with the resignation of the defeated. The sea rolls beneath them, the two vessels grinding together in the swell, ropes straining like taut nerves. He nods to his executive officer, Lieutenant Zersay Fischer, to hold the conning tower, then swings across the gap himself, boots thudding onto the tanker's deck plates slick with oil and salt water. You can almost taste the brine in the air, mixed with the acrid scent of bunker fuel leaking from the holds. Lange descends the companionway, flashlight in hand, his Mauser pistol holstered but ready. The boarding party parts for him, their faces illuminated in the dim glow, eyes gleaming not with triumph, but something closer to bewilderment. Klein leads the way, deeper into the belly of the ship, where the air grows warmer, heavier, laced with unfamiliar sweetness that clashes with the industrial reek of the Atlantic War. They push open a hatch to the forward cargo hold, and there it is, a revelation stacked in crates, spilling into the beam of their torches. Not just the expected drums of aviation gasoline, sloshing ominously as the ship pitches, but boxes upon boxes labeled in English and Norwegian script. Klein pries one open with his knife, the wood splintering like a gunshot in the confined space. Inside, oranges, vibrant and untouched, their citrus tang exploding into the stale air. Real fruit, not the withered scraps smuggled from North Africa that pass for rations back in Lorient. The men murmur, hands reaching out instinctively. Feldwebel Braun plucks one, biting into it, juice dripping down his chin like liquid gold. Lange freezes, his mind racing. They've hit tankers before, under Scheck's command, but nothing like this. Another crate yields chocolate bars, Hershey's, the wrappers proclaim, stacked in neat rows, as if mocking the Reich's ersatz confections made from boiled beets and sawdust. The submariners laugh at first, a nervous bark echoing off the bulkheads, but it fades into stunned silence as they uncover more. Cans of Coca-Cola, fizzing when shaken, promising a sweetness these men haven't tasted since before the Führer's grand designs turned Europe to ash. And then, absurdly, phonographs, portable record players, complete with stacks of vinyl discs. Klein winds one up, drops the needle, and American jazz fills the hold. Glenn Miller's brass swinging defiantly, notes bouncing off steel like forbidden whispers. You feel it, don't you? That jolt of disbelief ripping through these hardened Kriegsmarine sailors. Men who've endured the crush of depth charges, the endless patrols where mold blooms on every surface, and the only music is the ping of enemy Azdik. Braun turns to Lange, orange peel in his teeth, voice thick with wonder. Herr Kapitän, they live like kings. Fresh fruit on a warship route, while we choke on leather belts? The others nod, rifling through more crates, cigarettes, Lucky Strikes by the carton, tins of corned beef that don't taste like rust, even women's stockings, silk ones, destined, perhaps, for some London shopgirl oblivious to the wolf packs lurking below. Lange's envy surges, unbidden, a bitter wave crashing over his disciplined facade. He's seen the reports from Donitz himself, U-boat losses climbing, supplies dwindling as the Allies tighten their noose. Back home, his wife writes of ration cards stretched thin, children scavenging for coal in bombed-out streets. Yet here, aboard this unassuming tanker, the SL-125, her manifest confirms, out of New York via Halifax, the proof of America's bottomless well. Industrial might, not just in tanks and planes, but in the everyday luxuries that fuel a nation's spirit. The men stuff their pockets, grabbing what they can carry back to U-505, chocolate bars melting in the humid hold, records tucked under arms like contraband treasures. But as the laughter dies, a shadow falls over Lange's features. He scans the manifest again. Thousands of tons of this abundance, convoy after convoy crossing the Atlantic unscathed more often now. Their wolfpack tactics, once unstoppable, now picked apart by radar-equipped destroyers and those infernal Liberator bombers closing the mid-ocean gap. "Enough," he snaps, voice echoing. "Take what we need for the boat. Fuel first, then rations. Set the charges." The men comply, but the air hums with unspoken questions. How can Germany compete with this? An empire starving while the enemy feasts. As they haul the spoils across the gangplank, the first pangs of doubt creep in, like the distant hum of aircraft engines on the horizon, promising that this victory might be their last. The transfer begins in earnest, a frantic ballet under the stars as the sea heaves like a living beast. Hoses snake across the gap, pumping precious fuel into U-505's near-empty saddle tanks, enough to extend their patrol by weeks, Donitz would approve. But it's the smaller hauls that ignite the crew's fervor. Crates of oranges hoisted by rope, chocolate bars passed hand to hand like illicit currency, Coca-Cola bottles clinking in canvas bags. Phonographs follow, carefully wrapped in oilskin against the spray, their jazz records a siren call from a world untouched by ration books and blackout curtains. Back aboard the U-boat, the spoils flood the narrow gangways. In the forward torpedo room, Matrosengefreiter Hahn cracks open a Coke, the fizz erupting like a miniature geyser, drawing cheers that echo through the hull. "Tastes like victory," he mutters, passing it to his mates, men with salt-cracked lips and eyes hollow from vitamin-starved nights. You can picture the scene, the red emergency lights bathing their faces in a hellish glow, the air thick with the alien scents of citrus and cocoa overpowering the usual diesel fug. For a moment, it's euphoria, a stolen slice of the enemy's plenty amid the grinding misery of submarine life. Lange oversees it all from the bridge, his binoculars sweeping the horizon for the telltale smoke of approaching warships. The tanker's crew, bound and guarded on their own deck, watches with stoic resentment, Captain Olsen among them, his pipe clenched unlit between teeth, muttering Norwegian curses about the damned Hun pirates. But Lange's thoughts drift deeper. He's no fool, a veteran of the Atlantic since '39, when the seas ran red with easy kills. Now, the manifests he's skimmed tell a damning tale. This isn't one lucky ship. The SL-125 is part of a vast armada, convoys HX and SC series churning out from Halifax and New York like clockwork, loaded not just with war material, but the sinews of civilian life.
fresh produce from California groves, chocolate from Pennsylvania factories, soda from Atlanta bottling plants, all flowing to Britain while Berlin's bakeries peddled bread bulked with potato peelings.
Envy coils in his gut, sharp as a bayonet. His last shore leave in Brest, cafes serving watery beer, shops barren of sweets, his own letters home begging for care packages that never come. The Führer's promises of total war ring hollow here in the face of Yankee excess. "They don't fight fair," whispers Klein at his side, wiping chocolate from his mouth. "Machines building machines, farms feeding armies that never hunger." Lange nods, the weight settling. Reports from BDU headquarters filter through his mind. Admiral Donitz's urgent signals about the Black Pit closing, Allied production outpacing U-boat sinkings tenfold. One tanker like this? A drop in the ocean. But multiply it. Liberty ships popping from American yards faster than torpedoes can claim them. Each hold a testament to Roosevelt's arsenal of democracy. The men below indulge, but cracks appear. Obermachinist Weber, tinkering with a captured phonograph in the engine room, lets Glenn Miller play softly "In the Mood," swinging incongruously against the thrum of diesels. Some dance awkwardly in the cramped space, laughter brittle. Others stare at the fruit piles, voices low. If this is what they waste on merchants, what do their battleships carry? Caviar for the gunners? The contrast burns. U-505's galley stocks, dried peas that swell like stones in the gut, sausage that turns men's bowels to fire. Scurvy nips at them, teeth loosening, while Allied sailors feast. Lange calls a halt as dawn threatens, gray light creeping over the waves. "Scuttler," he orders, voice flat. Charges are set, time pencils from the armory, hissing like vipers in the holds. The boarding party retreats, cutting lines as explosions rumble below decks on the SL-125. Flames lick the superstructure, oil slicks igniting in a funeral pyre that lights the morning. The tanker lists groaning as U-505 dives, periscope depth, to watch her sink, bubbles rising like souls escaping. But as they slip away, the luxury lingers not as triumph, but poison. Lange in his tiny cabin, poring over charts by lamplight, feels the shift, a foreboding that this glimpse into Allied abundance spells the Reich's unraveling. Whispers spread through the boat. If the enemy swims in such wealth, how long until the wolf packs starve? And in the distance, the faint throb of propellers hints at retribution closing in. Submerged now, U-505 glides at periscope depth, the ocean's embrace muffling the world above. Lange hunches in the control room, hydrophone pressed to his ear, that distant throb growing into a chorus. Allied destroyers, perhaps, or a hunter-killer group vectored by radio intercepts. Silent running, he hisses, and the boat falls quiet, men freezing mid-motion, breaths held against the creak of hull plates under pressure. The captured jazz record scratches to a halt in the galley, silenced like a guilty secret. You sense the shift. From fleeting joy to the vice of reality clamping down, the luxuries in their bellies turning leaden. Hours stretch into a taut vigil as they evade, creeping south toward warmer waters. The Azores a distant hope for resupply. But the spoils haunt them. In the wardroom, over ersatz coffee laced with pilfered sugar, Lange gathers his officers, Fisher, Meyer, Klein, maps unrolled under the sway of a single bulb. "This tanker," Lange begins, tapping the manifest salvaged from the SL-125. "It's not an anomaly. Look, routing from New York,
part of convoy HX-237. They lose 1, 10 more sail. His finger traces the Atlantic routes, red lines like veins pumping lifeblood to the British Isles. Meyer's face hardens, recalling his time on U-66 when sinkings came easy. Now? The Americans build faster than we can torpedo, he mutters. Kaiser's yards churning out liberties like sausages. 2 a day, they say.
The conversation turns inward, voices low against the hum of electric motors. Klein recounts the hold's bounty. Oranges from Florida groves that stretch for miles. Chocolate from factories untouched by bombers. Fisher nods, his engineering mind whirring. Their supply chain, it's a machine. Pipelines from Texas oil fields, rails from Detroit plants. We hit a tanker, they reroute. Our ports? Bombed to rubble. U-boat pens cracked by tall boys. The envy festers, morphing into grim awareness. These men, elite of the Kriegsmarine, trained in the shadow of Tirpitz and Bismarck, now confront the arithmetic of defeat. Dönitz's Type 7s, once wolves of the sea, reduced to scavengers picking at an endless feast. You can feel the weight pressing on them, the hull's confines mirroring the Reich's shrinking horizons. Whispers filter from the crew quarters. Hahn sharing a Hershey bar with the torpedo men, but the sweetness sours with talk. If this is what feeds their sailors, one says, no wonder their morale holds. Ours? Breaking like ice in spring. Stories circulate, rumors from returning boats about Allied convoys guarded by escort carriers, their decks launching wildcats that strafe periscopes with merciless precision. Lange listens from his bunk, insomnia gnawing, the phonograph's jazz replaying in his head like a taunt. Glenn Miller's trombones evoke speakeasies in Manhattan, untouched by the Luftwaffe's reach, while Hamburg burns under firestorms. By nightfall, relative in the perpetual twilight below, Lange drafts his war diary entry, pencil scratching on damp paper. Captured Norwegian tanker SL-125, secured fuel and provisions. Enemy cargo reveals industrial superiority, fresh victuals in abundance, consumer goods amid war freight. Implications dire. Allied logistics eclipse our own, foreshadowing unsustainable attrition. He seals it, knowing BDU will read between the lines. Dönitz himself, the lion, rails in signals about the convoy battle turning, urging more aggression. But Lange sees the cracks. U-boat losses in May alone, 43 boats gone, crews entombed in iron coffins. His own U-505, plagued by mechanical gremlins, a microcosm of the fleet's decay. The men adapt, incorporating the loot into routine. Orange peels drying for vitamin T, Coca-Cola rationed like ammunition. But the reversal stings, from predators to parasites, feasting on scraps that highlight their poverty. Braun in the Radio Shack tunes into Allied broadcasts. Propaganda, yes, but laced with truths about American production. Ford plants retooling for Jeeps, shipyards launching vessels in days, not months. They're not fighting a war, he confides to Schmidt. They're manufacturing victory. The realization crystallizes, a cold certainty amid the warmth of stolen comforts. As U-505 presses on, evading another ASDIC sweep, Lange stares at the depth gauge, needle steady at 50 meters. The Atlantic, once their domain, now a graveyard of illusions. How long until the abundance they've tasted drowns the fatherland? And overhead, the throb intensifies,
A destroyer closing, depth charges primed, ready to shatter the fragile peace.
Depth charges rumble overhead, the ocean convulsing as if in rage. U-505 shudders, lights flickering in the control room where men brace against bulkheads, faces etched with the primal fear of the hunted. "Evasive maneuvers, starboard 20, down to 100 meters, Lange commands, his voice a whip crack over the chaos. The boat groans, diving deeper into the abyss, screws churning silently while the destroyer's props fade like a retreating storm. But the close call lingers, a ghost in the gauges, reminding them that the Atlantic is no longer theirs. You hear it in the strained breaths, the drip of sweat mingling with hull condensation. Survival, yes, but at what cost? They level out at 150 meters, the pressure hull popping like knuckles under strain, and the crew exhales in ragged unison. In the galley, the captured bounty serves as both salve and curse. Oranges peeled with trembling hands, chocolate shared in hushed rituals that feel like last rites. Han rigs the phonograph again, but this time the jazz plays muted, Glenn Miller's optimism clashing with the dim reality of their steel prison. "Turn it off," snaps Weber from the engine room, where he's nursing the diesels plagued by salt-corroded parts. The music dies, leaving only the electric hum and the distant ping, faint now, but a harbinger. Lange retreats to his cabin, a coffin-sized nook papered with charts and faded photos. His wife in a summer dress, pre-war innocence frozen in sepia. He unfolds the SL-125's manifest once more, fingers tracing the inventory like a condemned man reading his sentence. Aviation fuel, 50,000 gallons, enough to power a squadron of Mustangs over Berlin. But it's the sundries that wound deepest, those crates of plenty, symbolizing an empire that builds not just for war, but for life beyond it. America's farms yielding endless harvests, factories humming 24 hours under lights that never black out. Contrast that with the fatherland, U-boat bases in France under constant RAF harassment, supply trains derailed by partisans, civilians queuing for turnip soup while Goebbels spins tales of wonder weapons. The officers convene again, this time in whispers around the chart table, the boat's gentle roll a mocking lullaby. "It's over," Fisher admits, his usual stoicism cracking. "We've seen their underbelly, soft but endless. Our torpedoes? Finite." Meyer concurs, recounting tales from comrades on U-552. Convoys now ringed with escorts, hedgehogs raining death in patterns no evasion can outrun. Klein, ever the pragmatist, tallies the math. Allied tonnage sunk last month, half what we managed in 42. Their builds? Doubling. Lange listens, the envy from the hold evolving into a profound despair, a realization that hits like a torpedo amidships. This isn't just logistics, it's the soul of the war. Germany's vaunted efficiency, the blitzkrieg spirit, crumbling against Yankee mass production. A war of attrition where the Reich bleeds out while the enemy grows fat. Word spreads through the boat like bilge water seeping. In the torpedo room, Braun and his mates hoard the Coca-Cola, sipping it like elixir. But their talk turns dark. "Remember the happy time?" one recalls, voice thick. "Sinking liners off New Jersey, lights blazing like peacetime." Now, blackouts on both sides. But America's darkness is voluntary, their ports still churning. Schmidt, at the hydrophones, picks up faint Morse from other U-boats. Distress calls cut short, coordinates of doom. The crew's morale frays. Scurvy averted by stolen fruit, but the psychological rot sets in. Men dream of home, of tables laden like the tanker's holds, only to wake to the clang of shift changes and the ever-present threat of crush depth. Lange composes a signal to BDU, encrypted bursts via the Enigma machine. Successful intercept SL-125, fuel secured. Enemy provisions indicate overwhelming materiel superiority. Recommends strategic reassessment. He knows Donitz will bristle. The Admiral demands aggression, not doubt. But the truth festers. Historically, this patrol marks a pivot. U-505's encounters feeding into the broader collapse of the U-boat campaign. By May 43, Black May, the losses become unsustainable. Donitz pulling boats back to lick wounds that never heal. Lange feels it in his bones. The Wolfpack era ending, not with a bang, but a whimper of empty fuel tanks and hollow bellies. As they surface under cover of night, ventilators sucking in fresh air thick with ozone, the stars mock their plight. The Luxuries sustain them physically, but spiritually? Shattered. Germany doomed, not by battlefield defeats alone, but by the inexorable tide of Allied abundance. And as the horizon lightens, a new contact emerges. Silhouettes of ships, perhaps another convoy, tempting fate once more. But now, armed with bitter knowledge, will they strike or flee? The new contact sharpens on the horizon as U-505 charges batteries under the veil of night, exhaust venting like dragon's breath into the chill air. Lange trains his binoculars from the conning tower, the silhouettes resolving into a straggling convoy. Merchantmen limping without full escort, perhaps scattered by recent storms. "Capitaine," Fisher urges from below, "we have the fuel now. One more strike?" The crew stirs, the captured Luxuries fueling a desperate bravado. Chocolate-smeared fingers gripping periscope handles, orange-scented breaths quickening in the control room. But Lange hesitates, the tanker's bounty weighing heavier than gold. A mirror to their own frailty. They shadow the convoy at a distance, periscope kisses on the waves, the jazz phonograph silenced for stealth. You imagine the tension coiling, the men's eyes reflecting the dim glow of instruments, each heartbeat syncing with the electric motor's whisper. Hahn at the torpedoes, priming tubes with practiced hands, mutters prayers to forgotten saints. Yet Lange's mind races beyond the hunt, to the broader canvas of the war, where this single boarding crystallizes the Reich's unraveling. Donitz's grand strategy, the tonnage war, hinged on starving Britain into submission. But if every Allied ship brims with such excess, what hope for blockade? American shipyards, he's heard via fragmented signals, launch vessels in mere weeks, Kaiser's miracle workers welding hulls under floodlights, while German docks languish under bomb craters and material shortages. The decision crystallizes as the convoy's lead ship, a fat Liberty, stack belching coal smoke, presents a broadside. "Fire tubes 1 and 3, Lange orders, voice steady as the boat aligns. The eels streak out, bubbles trailing like accusations, and explosions bloom in the distance, flames licking the night sky as the merchant heels over, cargo spilling into the sea. Cheers erupt below, muffled but fierce, the men toasting with pilfered coke as they dive to evade the escort's wrath.
Depth charges follow, closer this time, the boat bucking like a wild thing, rivets straining. "Hold her steady," Lange barks, gripping the periscope stanchion until knuckles whiten. They escape, scarred but alive, the sinking another notch in U-505's tally.
Yet victory tastes of ash. Back on course for base, the crew devours the spoils. Fruit salads improvised in mess tins, records spinning tales of Americans' swing that mock their Führer's marches. Conversations turn philosophical in the off-watches. "This war," Weber confides in the engine room's oily heat, "it's not about battles. It's about who eats last." Braun nods, wrapper crumbs on his uniform, recalling pre-war Berlin cafes now reduced to ration queues. The realization spreads like gangrene. Germany's vaunted Wehrmacht, conquerors of Europe, undone by logistics. U-boats, once the terror of the seas, now outnumbered, outgunned, their crews sustained by enemy crumbs. Lange's war diary fills with stark entries, penned in the sway of Atlantic swells. The Allied abundance is not mere luxury. It's the foundation of endurance. Our provisions dwindle, theirs multiply. The end approaches, not in fire, but famine. He knows the statistics, whispered from BDU. By late '43, U-boat effectiveness plummets, the Battle of the Atlantic tilting irrevocably. Enigma cracks, unknown to him then, feed Allied hunters precise coordinates, turning wolves into prey. U-505's own fate looms. Captured intact in '44 by American task forces, her secrets spilled, accelerating the collapse. As they near the French coast, Biscay Bay's perils ahead. RAF Coastal Command patrols thick as flies. The men cling to the captured mementos. A phonograph plays softly in the wardroom, Miller's band evoking a world where jazz halls thrive, while Berlin's rubble grows. Envy yields to resignation. The tankers hold a prophecy fulfilled. Germany's dream of hegemony, starved at the root, crumbles under the weight of Yankee plenty. The crew, once believers in the 1,000-year Reich, now harbor doubts that echo through the hull like depth-charge reverberations. Surfacing off Lorient, signal flares guiding them into the pens, Lange scans the battered flotilla, fewer boats returning each patrol. The luxury aboard that Norwegian tanker? Not just spoils, but a death knell resounding across the Atlantic's vast graveyard. And as the hatch opens to the scent of land, the war's inexorable logic seals their fate. Abundance wins, scarcity dooms.